The Chants of Sennaar is an amazingly unique game blending puzzles with both a rich soundtrack and art style. But the real star of the game is its linguistics, with 5 unique languages you can learn to help you navigate the tower and ascend to the top. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the clear inspiration this game draws from. That is the story of the Tower of Babel. Before I get too far into the video, thanks for watching and hope you enjoyed the content I've been putting out. If you have, please leave it a like and subscribe if possible. I hope to break 100 subscribers here in the next year or so, and we have a lot of content we can do for that. Now, back to the video at hand. I can't say I paid too much attention in Sunday school, so my summation of the story might be a bit rough. But basically, at one point humanity spoke all one language, and eventually we endeavored to build a tower to reach the heavens itself, to visit God. God, seeing this, decided to confuse the people's tongues, making it so that no one could understand each other, causing the tower to eventually collapse and the people to scatter. This story is meant to explain why there's so many languages across the world that we live in today. But let's get back to the game. The major gameplay loop involves working your way into the various cultures that make up the tower itself, and learning their language to help you find a way to navigate upwards and onwards. As a point-and-click adventure game, it does a pretty solid job easing you into getting around. There have only been a few moments where I actually had some awkwardness moving around, but those are few and far between, luckily. The puzzles themselves really do rely on you learning at least some bit of the language to kind of understand what you're doing. Without going into details, there are at least a few puzzles that you can kind of figure out just by kind of watching and paying attention, but most of it will require you to learn the language at least to some extent. However, before getting into the game proper, I would like to bring up the art style and the soundscape. Starting with the visuals, it really evokes that old school mural look. The type you'd see in like old paintings and all that, especially in old history books and whatnot. And it's really, honestly, pretty surprising how it works out. Each level has its own unique look and vibe entirely to itself, and it kind of reflects the cultures that are within them. For example, the fortress area draws in this stark gray of stone, only to be interrupted by the few vibrant colors that are sprinkled within, mostly banners and whatnot. And honestly, there were a few spots in the game where I just had to stop and kind of take in what I was seeing, and just, appreciate the masterpiece of art that was in front of me. The soundscape of the game actually helps add to the ambience of the tower itself, from echoing footsteps through abandoned hallways to the sprinkling of fountains in the gardens. It really does help emphasize that you're really in a unique and amazing place. One of the places where this is on true display is the gardens itself, where you can hear water trickling everywhere around you, just as the background music is playing, and it's honestly kind of soothing. But what is a game without a story? In my opinion, they could have expanded on the story a little bit more, but it's kind of given considering the inspiration. Now, don't get me wrong, that does kind of explain why some of the things happen, but not exactly how. And they're kind of meant to remain a mystery. You do find murals that reveal the histories of the various cultures and how they see each other across the tower itself. But they are all kind of a little bit biased when you think about it, but it makes sense too. If you don't want spoilers to the game, please skip to here. Otherwise, let's ascend the tower and find out who these people are that made it and why we became so divided. We awakened from some strange sarcophagus deep inside a cave, not too certain of what's going on or how we got there in the first place, but only one real direction to go: upwards. Making our way through the underworks of the tower, we encounter our first initial set of puzzles. Most are pretty simple, open a valve, lower some water to allow us to pass, simple stuff like that. Pull a lever to open a door. Really straightforward, but it does help introduce you to the basic gameplay mechanic, and that is, find a way to keep moving upwards. Eventually we make it to the surface, to the area known as the Abbey. This area is occupied by people known simply as the Devotees. They are a group of people that seek to reach the top of the tower because they believe they can find God there and receive his blessings. And they have taken to some interesting measures to attempt to reach the top. However, the main path they would use to climb the tower has been barred by some strange warriors, so our next goal is to figure out a way past these guards and to continue upwards. Exploring the outskirts of the Abbey, we eventually find that there's no real way into it, meaning our journey might end a bit earlier than we actually thought. That is, until someone reaches out to us. A child. It turns out, however, they just want to play hide and seek. Well, after finding them a few times, they actually show us something helpful, and it's a way to sneak into the Abbey itself proper. As we make our way further in, we start to hear rumors about the preacher of the Abbey, and how he disappeared, and no one has a clue as to where he went. Probably nothing tragic though, right? Our new goal is to succeed where the preacher has failed and continue onwards. It turns out he did find a way past those guards, which actually works out to our benefit, because it allows us to continue upwards. As we now start to make our way up the tower properly, we enter the next level, the fortress. This is home to those warriors that were guarding the gates earlier. With this new culture, we are introducing a new language and a new challenge of learning, since none of the warriors are all too friendly when they see us. And unlike the devotees who weren't actually outright hostile towards you, these warriors will hunt you down, and that means we actually have to start sneaking our way in. So also during this infiltration, we can start to appreciate some aspects of the language the warriors use. One of the major things with languages is that they actually have their own sort of grammar to them as well. Some actually use different symbols to represent plurality. So for example, the devotees actually just repeat the same word over again, where the warriors actually have a symbol that means plural. It's just one of those small things that help separate the cultures of the various levels in this game. As we sneak further into the fortress, we eventually find the armory, and this allows us to don some armor that would let us blend in with the warriors around us. That is, assuming we don't do anything too unusual or disobey orders that were given to us. This gives us a wider berth to explore the fortress as we start to seek out a way to get up to the next level. As we start to get more familiar with how the fortress functions, we are tasked with helping with the logistics and keeping everything flowing. Eventually, we're able to sneak off and find a spot where we actually encounter a mural summing up the history of the warriors, who arrived on the tower and met a group of people they called the Chosen Ones. Since then, the warriors have dedicated themselves to fortifying the tower and building up a way to protect the Chosen Ones from those they deem impure. We now see why they were keeping the devotees out, because they deemed them impure and not worthy of ascending the tower. With a few more bits of information, we actually find a way to call these Chosen Ones, or at least get the tower ready for them to do so. It's here where we approach a bell tower, and after slipping the bellkeeper a bottle of wine, we are able to figure out the correct combination to ring the bells in order to put the fortress on high alert, thusly allowing us to sneak by and get to the Chosen Ones. With the bells tolling and the fortress going into high alert with the numerous warriors running around preparing to respond to the call, now we have an opportunity to use the elevator they've been guarding to allow us to climb up to the next level and meet the so-called Chosen Ones, who are really just bards, who seem to have entranced the whole of the warrior society by using nothing but music. As we use the elevator to climb up, we are greeted by what is, in my opinion, one of the most visually striking levels of the entire game, but also one of the most vibrant and colorful as well, which does seem to tie in well with the more eccentric people that call this level home. What's really striking aside from the colors and the people is how it all comes together in this simple level known as the Gardens. As we explore the gardens, however, things aren't as utopian as they would seem. The bards seem to think that all those on the levels below them are fools and are lesser because of it. They even have an entire cast of people meant to serve under them hand and foot. You even get to see the society's view of outsiders, deeming them fools and whatnot. They even claim that they have some hidden wisdom that they would give you if you weren't such a fool, even though they have no wisdom of their own to give. As we continue to explore the gardens, we eventually encounter a theater. However, we're told we need a special token for entry, so we set out to find one of these, and to do it, we actually have to talk to a game master, and well, we have to play a few games. That being said, some of these games are a bit more familiar than I'd like to admit. But after winning a few games and taking in the sights, we're able to gain entry into the theater, and finally crowd in to watch a play. This is a solid example of how the game sneaks in hints to help you solve puzzles later on, well, at least kind of giving you an idea what to do, seeing as it does show you the steps you need to do in order to progress. Now all we have to do is find the door that they were talking about. We have to head down into the sewers of the place, and well, after getting lost and finding our way, maybe, we find a compass. Meaning the only thing we need now is the key to the door we found. And well, that's actually pretty straightforward. Turns out they've been using the key as a decorative piece on the windmill. So after getting that, we head over to the door and make our way in. As we navigate the catacombs from the story, well, I've gotten lost a few times here, but as we make our way up, we actually find something. It seems like something might be following us. Making our way further in, we get to what looks like a mining complex. But as soon as we round a certain corner, we run into this crazy monstrosity. Luckily for us, it can't enter the light, so now we have to actually use the light to our advantage and navigate around it. After a few close calls, we manage to give it the slip. And as we make our way further in, we discover something kind of strange. It's actually proper technology, a full-on elevator panel. Flipping the switch, we make our way up to the alchemist's lab itself. And well, this is a very interesting group of people. The alchemists seem to have come to the tower alongside the bards, but they became divided very quickly. Based on the societal values, the bards becoming hedonistic and focusing on leisure and the aesthetic, whereas the alchemists were consumed by their drive to study and research. At this point in the game, you can kind of deduce what you need to do in order to keep progressing. After checking out the labs, we head to the library, because we keep on getting reference to something called the formula, and we need to find out more about it. It turns out the formula they're looking for is for a key to help them open the gate that leads upwards. But if the pile of keys next to the door is any sign, they've been having little to no success with that. It turns out that the key has to be made out of a specific mix of metals to work. Now we have to gather the right materials and find the right ratio in order to get the door to open. We head back to the mines to get the bulk of the materials we need. After a crazy cart ride and dodging a few falling rocks, we manage to get an ingot of metal that we'll need to melt down in the labs. Now we just have to go through some abandoned labs to actually find the recipe itself. After a bit of mixing and weighing, we manage to make a key to open the door that leads us upwards to the final levels. This level hasn't been seen by anyone in the tower since the door was sealed long ago. As we make our way up, we make our way to the final level of the game. We have now entered the realm of the Anchorites. One of the majorly strange things about this level is that once we get here, there's not a lot of people doing anything. There's just a few people sitting there on the wall attached to some type of VR headset machine. And if you interrupt them, they're not all too happy about it either. That is, for the ones that can be interrupted, of course. When it comes to learning the language of the people here, the game kind of gives us a cheat. Well, at least an interesting way of doing it with this rotating puzzle thing. We use the puzzles to match up words from previous floors, and after a while, we eventually learned the bulk of the Anchorite language. I feel like I have to comment on the general vibe of this level. There's all this wondrous technology around them, and yet they're completely blinded by what the machines they're hooked into. Maybe a commentary on the modern day? Maybe not. Who knows? I digress, however. Eventually we come across a lab of sorts, with a huge revelation regarding the story. We meet one of the residents of the level who tells us that, for the most part, they've been waiting for us for a while now. It's also revealed to us that this person and his people were the ones who created the tower in the first place. Eventually the other societies we've encountered started to arrive and, well, the division started to take hold. Seeing this, he and his people placed themselves in a self-imposed exile, but in doing so, they started to slowly die out as time went on. And in a last-ditch effort to save his people, he created you. Well, with the hope of, you'd eventually learn all the languages of various people and help unite the tower, once again to save his people, and to bring an end to the entity known as the Exile, who is an AI that seems like it has created these barriers between the people in order to maintain a type of status quo of sorts. Now we are tasked with reconnecting the people of the tower. That's easier said than done, however, since now we have to find several hidden doors scattered across the entire tower itself, each with their own unique language puzzle. After gaining access, we get to meet the Exile face to face. As we start to disconnect it from the systems, it grows progressively more and more irritated with us, making it take steps to try and prevent us from further messing with it. As we continue on, we learn more about how the Exile has influenced the people of the tower, being the real cause behind the divisions. After shutting down more nodes around the tower, we eventually get to the top of the gateway once more. This time it's open. But just before we can enter, we're ambushed by what seems to be the last-ditch effort of the Exile itself. But it seems like it failed, seeing as we wake back up in front of the gates and those robots that he sent are knocked down. Now with the path clear, we make our way up to the final part to activate the tower properly. Like many parts of our journey, we have to do this alone, and in the deafening silence, it seems all too common. Eventually we reach the controls and, well, we fail? We couldn't activate the tower and unite the people? Was our journey for nothing? That is, if we get the bad ending. But how did we get to the bad ending? We did everything right. We connected to people, we talked to everyone, but something just wasn't right. You see, if we had taken our time to reconnect with the people of the tower, like for example helping revive the garden in the Abbey, or convincing some bards to come and play for the warriors, every one of these small things helped connect the people, and eventually make the place a better place to live. We awaken once more. Everything seems a bit off, however, and we keep encountering the Exile symbol on everything, like somehow we failed in shutting it down, or it's fully taken over the tower. As we keep pressing on, things keep getting stranger and more muted, almost as if the world had been losing its language and becoming all the worse for it. After struggling to translate a few locked doors, we meet an old friend of ours, the monster from the tunnels, and he's hot on our heels as we run through this confusing new tower. After an intense chase through many parts of the tower we've been through before, we manage to get the creature to fall into a pit. And just as we defeat the creature, we're thrust into a strange new place, echoes of the Exile all around us, but as we see something that really complicates things. We see ourselves hooked into one of those machines the Anchorites have been in, or more accurately forced into, to exist digitally. In this case, this is our prison. We do manage to free ourselves from this dream, however, and, well, trying to process what happens. It becomes clear that we are now actually in the active tower, and we actually can truly unite the people, now that the Exile has finally been defeated. As we make our way back up the tower, many of the people we've met along our journey are here too, all wanting to see what the tower will do when it's activated. As we unite the tower once more, we see several symbols appear, all of which seem to have some meaning to the various cultures that have made up the tower. And with that, we get the true ending to the Chants of Sennaar. I really enjoyed this game's puzzles and how it utilizes language to help you solve them. The backdrop of the Tower of Babel was a nice touch as well. Overall, if you're looking for an interesting and unique puzzle game, I would definitely recommend this game. Thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed the video. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Again, I'm hoping to break 100 subs if possible. And if I do, I'll try and do something special for everyone who does. The next game is to be one of my personal favorites. That is, when I want to bang my head against the desk. On the plus side, hopefully I get rid of this headache I've had since I did that XCOM video last year.
Excitement continues to build as city centers across the globe prepare for the 20th anniversary of Unification Day.
Hope you're staying safe out there and have a good one.